Alright, so welcome back. And this time, I think the last time I did one of these, I had a book that I started. Well, now I finally finished it. I actually read it when I was on vacation up to Niagara, all that good happy stuff. But we'll get into that in a minute. So, really quick, what are we drinking? I just have Earl Grey because I need to buy more, and I have not in a long time. But I think you guys can see that. That was from when I went up to Niagara, and I bought it for my partner. That was like the gift that I got them on vacation and everything. But so super excited because they didn't want me to bring anything back, but joke was on them. So let's go ahead and get a drink and we'll get moving. I didn't have any vanilla ice cream, which I think I commented about that before. So it's not my favorite. But anyway, so what did I read? So I finished The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Um, to basically sum everything up, whenever I did a video a couple months ago, I kind of got the book, wanted to see what I thought about it and everything. And of course, we were in a different location in the room. Everything looked a little different. So I finally did finish the book. Um, so just a quick run through about the book and everything. It takes place in Germany around the time of World War II. Well, it's during World War II. You know, the stuff that was happening with the Jewish people along with other minorities throughout the German occupied regions. And so we basically follow Bruno and his sister, who are, I think that he's 9, she's 12 or 13. And their father ends up being put in charge of this concentration camp. And um, so there's a whole lot of interesting things. Um, it's very well put together for me as it gives a child's point of view. Um, we are told that the camp is called Out With, and um, there's not a real conversation realistically about the Jewish people and everything. It was just oh, they're not like us. So realistically, it was a super easy read. Um, I started it, got a good chunk done, probably. Let me try and see if I can find realistically where I was. Uh, by the end of my vacation, I was at the end of chapter 8, which is a third of the way. Yeah. And then I finished the rest within small, medium amount of time after I got back. Um, so what starts to happen is that we see Bruno who befriends a Jewish boy across the fence, and that his name is Shumel, I believe. Let me double check that. I want to say it's Shumel. It's yeah, Shumel, Shmuel. So I think that's Shumel. That's how I said it in my head. Um, and what leads up to it. Now, I haven't watched the movie. That's something that me and my partner are going to do once I get done here. Is that um, Schumel's father, he ends up going missing, and so Bruno wants to help his friend find, his father. At this point near the end of the novel, um, we see Bruno, his family is kind of getting called back to Berlin and everything else. Um, so and of course, I don't want to make any spoilers, but so for me, honestly, I didn't like the book. I think the way that it's written, there's a lot of one for me, I didn't like how like a lot of the wording, like a lot of the things I didn't think were very oh, after I knock you guys over, um, very well highlighted how like the conversations might have been. Especially, we see a conversation between Bruno and his dad about, the Jewish people across the fence. That happens in one of the middle chapters. And for me, I find it very unlikely that a warden of a, concentration camp would not have a better conversation with his child about, oh, they're Jews. Instead it's more pushed off. And for me, I thought that was very unlikely, in my opinion. I also thought the writing in general wasn't the best. There were a couple of words that I thought for 1945 would be highly unlikely. And so for me, it wasn't convincing. And so for me, there was a couple times where it did end up jolting me out, but it makes it relatable for modern readers. So I understand that. And believe um, that this book was mostly, like, and it even has, I'm not sure if you can really see, it has like discussion questions in the back. So I think it's more supposed to be for like education purposes. So using for kids and, reading in the classroom. So for me, I think that's really why those word choices were used. I think for me, one of the biggest things was barbershop quartets. Like that is one of the biggest that stood out to me. And for me, I find it unlikely that it would be used, especially the narrator is more of a third person point of view, but it's very much still told in the way that a child might. So for me, I find it kind of unlikely that a child around 14, 19 would use the word like a barbershop quartet to explain something, or um I don't know. That might have been my big hang up and why I really didn't care for the book. Um and of course anybody that has ever read the book, like I'm fairly late and I've never watched the movie. So for me the ending was very like it feels very abrupt, and it comes, you know, not to really spoil it, but we see what happens to Shamal and, Bruno. But there's so much that the last chapter just feels like, oh, um, it almost felt like one of those series that there's so many untied knots, and all of a sudden you're at the last episode, there's half a dozen knots that need to be tied, and so they're just like, oh, we're just gonna hurry up time in a 20-minute time period. And for me, it was very unsatisfying. And I don't know, like, I really don't know very many people that have also read this. And so I don't know if that's just kind of my hang up on the book. Um, for me, one of the actual interesting things is that we see the battle of morality, especially between Bruno, who is a 9-year old, and how he is now, seeing his maid, how he sees a chef, all these people. But, whenever he sees, the interaction of them with the guards or with, other people, inside of the, it's not really a community, but it kind of is because all there is the soldiers and all of that. So the community around them very much does not like them because they are either Jewish or they're other minorities that are frowned upon by the Third Reich. So, he is able to deal with this dual morality inside of himself by, saying, oh, well, this person, and it's there's certain things that leaves you questioning, what is it that makes some of these characters, not quite liked. It's kind of inferred, they're Jewish or whatever, but I did take it in other directions possibly. Um, Really, whenever we started getting to that point, I really just wanted to get done with the book, so that's kind of my bad when it comes to reading. But I do think it does come important to recognize those things. We also see that with the mother. The mother is very much against everything that the father's doing, that the father is this, commander in the, you know, um, Nazi regime, and he's coming to the point where he's going to be able to run this concentration camp, but she's very much against that. She doesn't like that idea, and you know, I think that that is an even more fascinating thing. And for me, I really want to know, like, we see very limited reaction when it comes to that. We don't see what happens with, you know, Bruno's mother in a conversation with the father and stuff like that. There's such a limited thing, and instead it's all focused around Bruno and Jamal. And so for me, that's a bit frustrating because we then are just left kind of guessing how he, sees his parents. His mother is kind of against it. She states, how does she word that? Um, Basically, whenever they're leaving, she makes the comment that we shouldn't have had the Führer here. And then she also makes the comment about some people just want more and more power, referring to the father. So there's kind of all these things. There's more character development from the grandmother, who does not live at any, you know, does not exist in the present tense at all in the novel. Um, that she has a conflict with the father because, she believes, that this is wrong, all this stuff, you know, and I don't know. I feel like there was trying to be this big, quiet thing about what was going on, which I find very, and I might be wrong. I very well might be wrong, but I find that very unlikely that we would see the parents, especially the father of a, concentration camp, would not talk as much about, I don't know, about the whole situation. And for me, that's more frustrating because I don't know. Like, I can't imagine that, especially looking at like current times. Most people that might be in that situation, they wouldn't talk like that. They wouldn't really be in a situation where they would hide that stuff from their kids. Instead, they would communicate those things. But that might also just be my flawed view. So all in all, um, of course, starting a new grading system for books. One being that I would never read it again. I disliked it. 10 being that I will definitely read it 100%. Um, I think I'm going to give this a 4. More than likely, it'll find a home on probably over here on this bookshelf, which has like a lot of stuff on it, and it'll probably never come back again. But that's his life. And of course, but I think it's a good tool, for reading, especially for kids when it comes to something like, that. Um, but for me, as especially somebody that wants more out of, you know, there's so much focused on, the Bruno and Schmal that it's very much lacking. We get bits of Gretel, so, but even at the end, Gretel is just like glossed over, and it's and for me that's very frustrating. It's like, no, I don't know. So a 4 out of 10. I probably will never read it again. It'll probably spend a good amount of time on my bookshelf. Um, I might use it for reading in a classroom, but all in all, no. Now, of course, um, since that book is off of my itinerary and I still have my giant stack, until I get the giant stack used up, which is going to be a while, um, I want to instead open up the door where I let you guys kind of help me kind of get through books because, like, I have this shelf full of books I want to read. Um, Most of this shelf all the way to here, so from here over is full of stuff I want to read, and it just goes. Like, most of this bookshelf is stuff I want to read, and currently I am still reading two other books. One is more of a theory kind of book. I'm finishing up on that. I probably won't be done for probably another month or so. The other one I always keep in my pocketbook, so I haven't read it as much since, you know, here soon I probably will because of other things that are going on. But so I really pulled out three books, or well, realistically, I'm just gonna keep moving them and just like pushing everything up. So hopefully I can get through this in one lifetime. But um, so the three books that I have happily chosen, I guess, are Immaculate Mistakes, by Paul Bailey. Um, What to Do When Words Get Ugly by Dr. Michael D. Solder. That might be one that I replace my one that I do whenever I do laundry, but I'll let that up to you guys. And Little Fireflies by Cecily Ng. I had that on whenever I put this shelf thing together. Um, I will put in the comment section or whatever the blurbs of the books just so you guys can like give rough ideas, see what you guys want to read. But those are the three that are offered. Um, they're not really, they don't look too long, so I imagine they shouldn't be horrible to get through. But that's everything for this episode. And I hope that you guys are filled with peace, love, and joy. Have a good one, guys.